Hello and welcome to Portugal. I am here to drive this, the McLaren Senna, and I am a bit nervous, I have to confess. We are going to Estoril, just down the road from the hotel where we're staying. This is significant to the Senna because it's where Ayrton Senna won his first Grand Prix, and it is also a pretty scary old school F1 circuit, which is a pretty intimidating proposition when you've got a car like this, because this is the most powerful and lightest McLaren they've yet made. The most powerful without hybrid assistance, of course, because this is a successor to the P1 and it does away with that car's electrical assistance and instead focuses on less weight and more aero. As it happens, it's got a better power to weight ratio than the P1, so it's going to be quite an intimidating proposition. But before we get to the track, before we get immersed in all that excitement, I thought I'd just take opportunity to digest some of the stats and talk around the car and have a look at it, because once we get to the track, things are going to be pretty hectic. Now, the way it looks, that's obviously a pretty controversial factor, but I think when you see it before you, it actually starts to make some sense. It's not conventionally beautiful in the way that we have kind of come to understand about supercars. Even the P1 was a much more attractive car than this from a kind of an instinctive point of view. But when you see the Senna, you start to make sense of why it looks the way it does, and it tells you how it works. That's the really cool thing. So there's a lot to understand about this car, obviously, a lot of technology, but just when you take in the way it looks, you understand about the aero, which is a massively important part of this car. So at the back, we'll talk about that huge rear wing in a little bit, but at the front here, you see these channels with these blue flaps. So together with that rear wing, they open and close and control the aero balance, the amount of downforce that's going on in the car. Now, stats. I'll try and keep these to a minimum, but there are a lot of them to take in. So 800 horsepower for starters from the 4-litre twin-turbo V8. That's a lot, especially when you've only got 1,200 kilos to carry around. Okay, that's a dry weight without driver or fuel, but it gives you an indication that this is a very, very light car. It's about 200 kilos lighter than the P1. So that gives you a sense of how much extra weight it was carrying around with the battery and the hybrid system and all that kind of thing. It means, as I say, that this has a better power to weight ratio than the P1. It's also got a lot more downforce. So at 155 miles an hour, this is generating 800 kilos of downforce, where a P1 was generating 600 kilos at the same speed. How does it do that? Well, as I say, you've got that clever system there, which directs the air through there. More through here, more through the nose, that directs it over the top, through the snorkel. As I say, you just have to look at the car and you begin to understand how it works. Your eyes can kind of trace the flow of air through the bodywork, over the bodywork, through these intakes, into the engine. It's a very clever design in that sense because it doesn't need any further explanation. You know, you can see how the air goes in here. You can see how it comes out here and creates a kind of low pressure zone that takes the air out, the hot air out of the engine bay and all that kind of thing. And of course, there's this rear wing, which is extraordinary. It's absolutely gigantic. I mean, everywhere you look around the car, I love the fact you can see into it. You know, these huge gills, the diffuser, drive shafts. You really get a sense that this is a visceral car, which is, from those who've driven it, is very much how it behaves on road and track. Because of course, although this is a track car, it's also road legal. And McLaren's aim for this car was to make it the most extreme track car that you could drive on the road. Now, there are lots of people making those kind of claims at the moment, but this potentially will live up to that claim. Let's have a quick look inside. As you'd expect, it is full of carbon fibre, that being McLaren's kind of signature technology. It's kind of familiar if you've been in other McLarens, but at the same time, it feels a lot more technical and pared back. There's just carbon everywhere, and it just hammers home that point about weight saving, motorsport technology, all that kind of thing. There's just so many cool things about it. So these seats, fixed carbon fibre seats, and they weigh about less than 4 kilos each. I've picked one up with one hand. It's just incredible. And what else have we got? So it's, you know, it's a trimmed car. You could drive it on the road. You know, you've got a touch screen and all this kind of stuff. There's just loads of little cool things though. So apparently when you move the seat backwards and forwards, the gear shift and all these buttons here move with the seat. So everything's always in the same place, no matter whether you've got the seat forward or back. You've got some of the controls have moved up here. We've got these distinctive side windows, which are an option, and they're slightly heavier than the normal blanking carbon panel you could have, but not surprisingly, most Senna owners have gone with it because it just gives this incredible sense of airiness in the cabin. Now, McLarens are always very good for visibility, and they help you with your confidence on the track and the road as well. So it's good to see that that's been maintained. I'm interested to see whether the engine has that rawness that you'd want out of a car like this. You know, McLaren's often been criticised for being a little bit serious and maybe even anodyne. I don't think so, but it's a criticism people have levelled at them. I hope this car sounds really, really angry, because it looks angry and it promises to be angry on the track. What else we got? We've got the 720S style configurable display. Sorry about the bonging there. And we've got harnesses, obviously. I think we're going to need them, going by the braking performance we've been told about. Apparently from, well, the first turn at Estoril that we'll be going into, you can brake 20 metres later in this car than you can in the 720S. The downforce also means you can go around, there's a really fast kink around the back of the track, and apparently you can go around it 10 kilometres an hour, so 6 miles an hour faster in this car than the 720S. These are kind of little incremental gains that all that track honing and all that aero and all that kind of thing makes to this car. I am a little bit intimidated, I have to confess. I think I should probably go and have another coffee, maybe watch a few more YouTube onboards to get a sense of where the track's going, and then I need to suit up, man up, and get on with it. Right, so we've left the swanky hotel. You've had a quick talk around the Senna. I'm now here at Estoril circuit and wearing my race suit, which I feel a little bit self-conscious about, but I'm assured is necessary for what we're about to do. This is, of course, a very special track for this car. It adds an element of intrigue to the whole thing. Ayrton Senna won his first Grand Prix here in 1985 in the pouring rain. He lapped everybody in the field apart from one. And McLaren obviously wants to make a link back to that achievement and the Senna legacy and all that with this car. So it's a nice little extra twist. It's also quite an intimidating track. It's very old school. It's got some very fast corners. It's not got a whole lot of runoff. It's quite a full-on place to drive, quite a full-on car. So I'll be driving the Senna, we're putting in 6 laps I think, and then we get another 6 laps and some time to take in what we've done. Now, if only there was a slower car here for us to get our eye in on the track. Well, turns out there may well be. Right, so that was my sighting laps in the 720S. How did that go? Well, it was, Estoril's a narrower track than I remember. Well, maybe it's just that the 720S is a bit quicker, but pretty intimidating. I felt like I was a bit all over the place, to be honest. It didn't feel entirely comfortable. I was just, my lines were all over the place, but I'm really glad we've had a chance to at least see which way the track goes before we get in the Senna, because this is one intimidating track and that is one intimidating car. I think I may need to go and have a coffee and a little sit down and get myself ready for what's to come. It promises to be quite intense. Hello, right, I am here with Ian Howshall, who is product manager for the Senna and 720S previously. Is that right?
Yep.
Yep. I've reeled off a few stats at you already, but really, I think probably we want Ian to explain a bit more about the car, seeing as he knows more than I do. I guess, Ian, a few people look at this car and look at it on paper and things like that and say, hopped up 720S. Mm-hmm. Prove them wrong.
Okay, so hi everyone. This car is designed with a single purpose in mind, to be the ultimate McLaren track car, the fastest thing around a track we've ever made, but also road legal. It's, for its looks, it's, you know, we're quite unapologetic about the way it looks. It is the personification of our form follows function philosophy. So it's a very teardrop shaped cabin with all the corners pushed out like pods into the airflow. Their job is to manage the airflow, cool the car and produce downforce.
Right.
This thing is an absolute sort of track weapon that we can put number plates on.
Right.
Everything about it has been optimized to do that. So as well as being the most engaging car to drive, it's also the lightest car that we've made since the McLaren F1. And that's only due to the crash regulations of having airbags and everything else now. Yeah. So 1,198 dry weight, in kilos that is. It's really important on the performance of the car.
So obviously aero is a massive part of the story and explains the way the car looks.
Yeah.
I really like the way that you can kind of see what's going on with it. You can see how it's through. So maybe if you can just kind of front to back, just talk us through what the air is doing as it goes through the car and explain a little bit about why it looks the way it does.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, it's a real visual story of airflow, this car.
Yeah.
The front end, I mean, we start down here and we have this huge central intake which is feeding the low temperature radiators.
Right.
This is cooling the charged air coolers and the transmission.
Yeah.
All of that air exits out through these great big nostrils here over the top of the car. The central part is kept deliberately flat, so that feeds over the windscreen and into the roof snorkel at the top.
Okay. Yeah.
These vinyl stickers which have been put on the car by MSO, just another option that we're offering with the car, really show you how the air is guided along this path here, down between the wing mirror and the A-pillar, and then straight into this cooling duct here, and that's the high temperature radiators.
Yep. So does that reduce drag? Does it effectively speed the air up into the radiator?
It's just giving a really clean, fast airflow into the cooling system.
Right.
And by taking the radiator, we've got two small low temperature radiators either side on our cars at the front. By taking this inboard, we've allowed to use all this area here for downforce generation. Right. So the split is 150 mil longer than.
So outboard of here is downforce.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. These front flaps here, the blue ones, they work in unison with the rear wing to optimise the balance of the car. Yeah. And are constantly shifting around depending on whether it's trying to stabilise for braking, give you downforce in the corners, or reduce drag for the straights.
And presumably that works in conjunction with the race active chassis control.
So it's constantly, the whole systems are talking to each other about what the car is doing, where you are on the steering, where you're on the brakes, if you're on the throttle. It's looking at longitudinal and lateral acceleration of the car. There's so many sensory inputs into the systems to work together to give you this kind of completely consistent platform to just push faster, brake later, get on the power earlier. So all these side elements, these are for managing airflow down the side of the car. And with this door blade here, they create almost a wall of air here. So on the 720S we've got the double skin door. Well, this does it but with a virtual wall of air. So this is keeping everything attached. We also have this lower intake duct which is feeding the rear diffuser. There's a great big double diffuser on this car.
So that's downforce, not cooling?
Yeah, absolutely. That's cooling and that's downforce. You go around to the rear, you can see as the air's coming over here, it's hitting this this gurney. It's generating low pressure behind here, which has helped drawing air out from the radiators as well. Again, sort of maximising the ducting and performance of the car.
So the rear wing, taken us this long to get to this component of the car, which is perhaps its dominant visual feature. It's obviously a big part of the performance as well.
Yeah, it's hugely important in terms of the amount of downforce the car creates. So we're at 800 kilos of total downforce at 155 miles an hour, at which point we start backing everything off because we're going to produce more and more and more, downforce squares with speed. So we're going to overload the tyres and the suspension. But this rear wing can generate 500 kilos of that 800 kilos of downforce.
Crazy, isn't it?
And it only weighs less than 5 kilos, so 4.87. And I believe you've held the part as well.
So I mean, it's absolutely amazing. It's an interesting position for the wing, and that's again one of the kind of visual markers of this car. We're used to seeing wings positioned further back. What's the reason for it being where it is?
So a couple of reasons. Mainly to do with having the car road legal. And you'll notice that on the edge here there's a sort of a bulbous lip. So this is to meet the regulations of the minimum radius that we're allowed to have for crash regulations. Again, also the overhangs over the side and the rear of the car are all to do with the legal constraints of being able to have this car on the road.
So you can't have the wings sticking out further than the back of the car?
No, obviously it would you get a better moment and more downforce generation the
Yeah.
further back you put it. Again,
Yeah.
with diffusers and everything else, the further away from the axles you can push everything,
Yeah.
the more moment you get on the car from the
Yeah.
aero load. So, but the main thing with this is the swan neck design pylons. So they mount it from the top.
Yeah.
This leaves all the underside really clean to generate all of the downforce.
Right.
You lose so much efficiency if you have kind of pillars bolted to the bottom of the car.
Right, right. Moving to the engine, now, you said last night in your presentation, you said that you want to get the message over that it's more than just a remap.
Yeah,
of
definitely.
The 720S engine. So
Yeah, definitely. So we have a lot of hardware changes in the engine itself. So camshafts, comm rods, pistons reprofiling, new water jacket for cooling.
Right.
It has a completely separate ECU in addition to what 720 has, just to manage the in-cylinder ion sensing. So it's looking at the combustion and maximising the efficiency of that to get more and more power out of it. We've got a bespoke carbon fibre plenum which saves a couple of kilos on here, and it
looks cool.
It looks cool, and it's fed by the roof snorkel.
Yeah.
That is all about engagement, the sound you get from the car, and also the throttle response, making everything really immediate.
In terms of the feel of the car and how it drives, say I'm a McLaren customer and I've been lucky enough to have had a P1 or well, let's start with a P1. So I'm a P1 owner, I've got an order in for this. What difference am I going to feel when I take this onto the track?
Well, obviously the P1's a very different animal because it has the hybrid element.
Yeah.
The biggest thing you'll notice is its reaction to any input you give it, because it's such low weight. It has very little inertia, so change of direction, the stopping power on the brakes, how it feels when you apply that throttle and it accelerates. You can feel that lack of weight in everything you do in the car.
Because the power to weight ratio is actually slightly better in this, isn't it?
Yeah,
P1, isn't it?
yeah, it is. So it's about 200 kilos lighter than the P1.
Yeah.
That's quite a significant amount of weight saving.
Yeah.
150 or so of that is from the hybrid, which is why we've only gone with the combustion engine.
Right, so I'm in my race suit, I'm about to go out around Estoril. What am I going to feel in this car back to back with the 720S? What do I have to look out for, basically?
Yeah, so I mean, from the moment you start the engine, you're going to feel a difference. You're going to feel more connected to the powertrain. The engine mounts are much stiffer, so we're transmitting kind of vibration through the structure. You'll feel it through the steering wheel, you'll feel it through the seat. Obviously the interior is much more stripped back and minimalist than the 720. It's all carbon fibre, and we've deliberately changed the ergonomics of certain elements. So this transmission control here slides with your seat, so you always know where it is. Because when you've got a race helmet on, you've got really limited field of view. Again, we've moved the screen up and towards you so that that's in your field of view, and the dynamic switches again are moved up compared to the 720S. Obviously you still have the 720S folding driver display, which kind of maximises that visibility, minimises distraction. You've got longer gear shift panels as standard, and all of these controls put up into the roof here mean that we can take away any kind of distraction from and clutter from the rest of the cabin.
And the cell, the monocage 3 we're on now, so that's an evolution from P1 to 720S to this, is that right?
Yes, correct,
Yeah. And how much has been changed on that? Is it?
So the windscreen surround and the tub effectively are the same as a 720S. The main difference is in the rear structure behind us here. So it's a twin-walled bulkhead that effectively incorporates all of the structure required for rollover protection, so there's no need for a racing harness bar. You bolt your 6-point race harnesses directly into the structure, and there's space behind there for 2 helmets and 2 race suits, and we've got bespoke luggage that fits in there as well, so you can take your car to the track and have your kit with you.
Yeah. So, in summary, is it kind of, does it wrap up what people might know from their P1 GTRs and their P1s into a package that they can use on the road as well? Does it offer a sense of both of those cars, or is it something?
I think it's completely different to those. The P1 and the P1 GT. The P1 is very much, in our positioning of Ultimate Series. P1 is the pioneer. It was the first to market. First of the 3 kind of holy trinity of hypercars. Bringing that technology to the market for performance benefits rather than, you know, efficiency that we've seen from some other the OEMs.
Yeah.
And but this goes back to basics. You know, there's no hybrid technology in it. It's all about the most powerful internal combustion engine we've ever produced. You know,
Right.
800 PS, 800 newton meters of torque,
Yeah.
800 kilos of downforce, 1200 kilos or just under.
Yeah.
And all of that translates into kind of like this really raw, kind of engaging driving experience.
Yeah, that all sounds really, really cool. And I think, well, it's probably time to get out and have a go and actually see what this all adds up to on the track. Thanks, Ian, for talking us around. It's been really interesting.
No problem.
Time to get out and justify wearing this silly race suit. Pulling out of the pits now. This man here is Charlie. He's very brave. He's my instructor to make sure I don't do anything stupid. If you hear him scream "brake," then it's going badly wrong, but fingers crossed it'll be all right. So, done a few laps in 720S, been out in this already. Going to try and talk you around as we go. But there's a bit of emotion here, because here we are in a car called Senna, driving out onto a Grand Prix track where he won his first ever Formula One race. It's quite an emotional experience in a way, but enough about that, here we go. So, into this first tight complex. Acceleration is just ridiculous. Hard on those brakes into this difficult complex. Got to try and get some warmth into the tyres, but the acceleration just goes to show that you don't need hybrid. You just need less weight and more turbo. Here we go onto the back straight. 4th gear, 5th gear, flat kick, really scary this one. 200 kilometers an hour around there. We've got a big stop coming up down this straight. Hard on the brakes now. That braking is extraordinary. Unlike anything you'll ever experience in a road car before. Just long left hand, you can start feeling the downforce, giving you the confidence to push harder than you would otherwise think. Surface change, hard on the brakes. Difficult right-hander, got to try and get that front end in. It wants to push on a little bit, but trailing the brakes in helps. It just feels so light. You've got that agility of a light car, but 800 horsepower, which is just outrageous. Here we go, right into this tight complex. A little bit of a twitch there. These tyres are gripping really hard. They give you loads of confidence. Right now we've got this long right-hander. This is a scary corner. The car's loaded up for a long time. This is where the downforce really kicks in. Open out, feed the power in. Full beans, here we go. 200 kilometers an hour. Got to look for that 200 meter board for the braking spot. 270 kilometers an hour, 200 meters, hard on the brakes. Now, that braking's just extraordinary. Hard against the harnesses, into the first corner, picking up the power. It's all about the grip. This isn't a car for kind of showboating and drifting around. It's all about grip, mechanical grip, aero grip. You can throw it around. It's not a kind of showboater's car, but it does give you another sort of thrill. It gives you that kind of feeling of being in a race car. But the really extraordinary thing is that once you've done this, had a shower maybe, calm down a bit, you could get changed, drive this car down to a nice beachside restaurant and calm down. And that's the extraordinary thing, that we've got performance like this into this hard braking zone, braking like a GT3 car, and then I could drive out the circuit gates on the road like any other McLaren. It's extraordinary. Right, into the braking zone. I've got to try and concentrate. Chatting's one thing, but driving this car properly is another thing altogether. Finding that apex. The front end just wants to push a little bit, but just got to adjust your driving accordingly. Right, into this braking zone. Pick up that apex down, just about. Careful here, because the weight transfer. There we go. Short shift. You can lean on the full power straight away. It's absolutely confidence inspiring like you wouldn't believe. And there we go. Cool down this long last corner. I don't know what you got from that other than some overexcited gabbling. Brave Charlie in the passenger seat didn't say a word. He's got a thumbs up. Good job, he says. He's paid to say that, but wow, what a car. Right. Should we head down to the beach for a beer then?
Sorry, that?
Should we head down to the beach for a beer?
Into neutral.
It's a wrap.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
No, well done. It was good.